Someone is staying because you redefined what loyalty feels like, and that truth doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself with applause or declarations. It settles quietly into the space between two people, in the pauses of conversation, in the way silence feels safe instead of threatening, in the way presence becomes a refuge rather than a responsibility. Loyalty, when redefined, stops being about obligation and starts being about choice. And someone, somewhere in your life, is choosing you, not because they have to, not because they are afraid to leave, but because with you, staying feels like alignment instead of sacrifice. Most people grow up learning a version of loyalty that feels heavy. Loyalty as endurance. Loyalty as tolerance. Loyalty as staying even when it hurts because leaving would make you the villain. That kind of loyalty is transactional and brittle. It demands proof through suffering. It equates love with self-erasure. Many people have stayed in relationships, friendships, families, and jobs where loyalty meant swallowing their voice, shrinking their needs, and calling it commitment. Over time, that version of loyalty teaches people that staying is painful, that closeness costs too much, and that connection always comes with debt, and then someone meets you. With you, loyalty doesn't feel like a cage. It doesn't feel like a test they have to pass or a contract they're afraid to break. With you, loyalty feels like breathing. It feels like being allowed to be fully human without punishment. It feels like being seen in their contradictions and still welcomed. That is why they are staying. Not because you demanded loyalty, but because you made it feel safe. You didn't redefine loyalty by grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices. You did it in the small, consistent ways that most people overlook. You listened without waiting for your turn to speak. You made space for their emotions without trying to fix or dismiss them. You allowed disagreement without withdrawing affection. You didn't use silence as a weapon or affection as leverage. You showed them that closeness doesn't have to come with fear. Over time, their nervous system learned something new in your presence. Connection can be calm. That calm is revolutionary. When someone has lived in emotional chaos, calm feels like love. When someone has been taught that loyalty means proving yourself over and over again, being trusted feels like intimacy. When someone has been abandoned for expressing needs, being welcomed in their honesty feels like devotion. You didn't just offer them loyalty, you modeled it in a way that didn't hurt. And once someone experiences that, leaving doesn't feel like freedom anymore. Staying does. You didn't make loyalty about control. You never said, if you loved me, you would. You never tied your worth to their obedience or their availability. Instead, you made loyalty about mutual respect. About choosing each other again and again, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You showed them that loyalty can coexist with autonomy. That they don't have to disappear to belong. That staying doesn't mean losing themselves. That's why they are still here. people stay where they feel understood. They stay where their growth is encouraged, not threatened. They stay where mistakes are met with conversation instead of condemnation. You created an environment where loyalty wasn't demanded, it was inspired. And inspiration is far more powerful than obligation. You allowed them to see you fully, too. You didn't hide behind perfection. You admitted when you were wrong. You apologized without defensiveness. You showed vulnerability without making it their responsibility to fix you. In doing so, you taught them that loyalty doesn't require pretending. It requires honesty. And honesty, when it's safe, builds a bond stronger than any promise ever could. Someone is staying because with you, loyalty feels like partnership instead of performance. They don't feel like they're constantly being evaluated. They don't feel like love is something they can lose in a moment of weakness. They know that your connection has roots, not just reactions. That when conflict arises, it will be faced, not fled. That when distance appears, it will be bridged, not punished. That certainty doesn't make things boring, it makes them deep. In a world where people leave at the first sign of discomfort, you stayed present during the uncomfortable parts. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but sincerely. You didn't vanish when things got hard. You didn't turn cold when things got real. That consistency taught them something profound. Loyalty isn't about never hurting each other, it's about never abandoning each other in the process of repair, and repair is where real loyalty lives. Anyone can stay when things are easy. Anyone can promise forever when the future feels light. But you showed them what staying looks like when emotions are messy, when misunderstandings happen. When life applies pressure. You didn't weaponize their vulnerability. You didn't keep score. You didn't use their past against them. Instead, you treated their trust as something sacred. That's rare. Most people are loyal to what benefits them in the moment. You were loyal to the bond itself. You protected it in private, not just in public. You spoke with care even when you were frustrated. You chose understanding over being right. Over time, those choices accumulated into something steady and real. Something that made leaving feel like losing a home, not escaping a trap. Someone is staying because you redefined loyalty as emotional safety. They don't have to be hypervigilant around you. They don't have to constantly prove their worth. They don't have to earn your kindness. It's already there. And that unconditional regard doesn't make them complacent, it makes them invested. When people feel safe, they want to protect what they have. They want to show up. They want to give back. Loyalty flourishes in environments where it is mirrored, not monitored. You didn't threaten them with abandonment. You didn't make love conditional on perfection. You allowed space for growth without fear of rejection. And in that space, they chose to stay. Again and again, sometimes they don't even realize why staying feels so natural. They might not have the language for it. They just know that with you, their chest feels lighter. Their thoughts feel clearer. Their heart doesn't feel like it's constantly bracing for impact. That's not luck. That's the result of how you love. You respected their boundaries instead of testing them. You valued their time instead of competing with it. You supported their independence instead of interpreting it as distance. All of that sent a powerful message. I want you here because you want to be here, not because I trapped you into staying. That message changes everything, because when loyalty is chosen freely, it becomes resilient. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It doesn't disappear at the first disagreement. It doesn't rely on guilt or fear to survive. It stands because it wants to. And that kind of loyalty doesn't need constant reassurance. It speaks for itself through presence. You also gave them something many people never experience: consistency without suffocation. You were reliable without being controlling. Available without being invasive. Loving without being possessive. That balance is difficult to achieve, and even harder to maintain. But you did it by honoring both connection and individuality. And that taught them that loyalty doesn't mean ownership. It means care. Someone is staying because you didn't make them choose between being loyal to you and being loyal to themselves. You encouraged their dreams instead of feeling threatened by them. You celebrated their growth even when it changed them. You didn't demand that they stay the same for your comfort. You allowed evolution. And in doing so, you showed them that loyalty isn't about freezing someone in time, it's about walking with them as they change. That kind of companionship is rare in a world obsessed with control. There's also the way you handled their flaws. You didn't romanticize them, but you didn't shame them either. You held them accountable with compassion. You spoke truth without cruelty. You believed in their capacity to do better without defining them by their worst moments. That balance taught them that loyalty isn't blind acceptance, but it also isn't conditional love. It's commitment to growth. Together, they know that if they stumble, you won't immediately turn your back. They know that if they succeed, you won't resent them. That security allows them to relax into the relationship instead of constantly scanning for threats. And when people relax, they stay. You didn't rush loyalty. You let it build organically. You understood that trust grows through repetition, not pressure. Through showing up, not showing off. Through patience, not persuasion. Over time, those repetitions created a rhythm. And that rhythm became familiar. And familiarity, when it's healthy, becomes home. Someone is staying because with you, loyalty feels like being at home in another person, not the kind of home that traps you, but the kind that restores you. The kind where you can set your burdens down. The kind where you are allowed to be tired. The kind where you don't have to perform or pretend. You offered that, often without even realizing it. And once someone experiences that kind of loyalty, the world outside feels louder, harsher, less forgiving. This doesn't mean the relationship is perfect. It doesn't mean there aren't moments of doubt or frustration. But it means that when those moments arise, the foundation holds. Because the loyalty between you isn't built on fear of loss, but on appreciation of presence. They stay because they want to, not because they're afraid to leave, and that distinction matters. You taught them that loyalty can be soft, that it can be gentle, that it can coexist with joy, laughter, and ease. You showed them that staying doesn't have to feel like work all the time. That commitment doesn't have to feel like a burden. That love can be steady without being boring, deep without being dramatic. In redefining loyalty, you also redefined love. You showed them that love isn't proven by how much pain you can endure, but by how well you can care for each other. That it's not about staying silent to keep the peace, but about communicating to build understanding. That loyalty isn't measured by time served, but by trust preserved. Someone is staying because you didn't ask them to be loyal to an image of you. You allowed them to be loyal to the real you. And you extended that same courtesy to them. That mutual authenticity created a bond that feels honest, not performative. And honesty is something people don't easily walk away from. You also knew when to hold on and when to give space. You didn't panic at distance. You trusted the connection enough to let it breathe. That trust communicated confidence, not arrogance, but groundedness. It told them that you believe in the bond, not just in your ability to control it. And belief is magnetic. They feel respected by you. Not just loved, but respected. Their opinions matter. Their boundaries matter. Their experiences matter. Respect turns affection into loyalty. Without it, love fades. With it, love deepens. Someone is staying because you made loyalty feel mutual, not one-sided. You didn't expect them to carry the emotional weight alone. You shared responsibility. You checked in. You noticed when something was off. You cared about how your actions affected them. That awareness made them feel valued, not used. And people stay where they feel valued. You didn't use loyalty as a bargaining chip. You didn't say, "After everything I've done for you." You gave without keeping a ledger. You trusted that what you gave would either be returned or appreciated, and if it wasn't, you would address it honestly. That maturity made the connection feel adult, not transactional. In redefining loyalty, you also redefined strength. You showed them that strength isn't about emotional distance or dominance. It's about presence. About staying open even when it's uncomfortable. About choosing kindness without losing yourself. That kind of strength invites loyalty naturally. People want to stand beside someone like that, and maybe the most important part is this: you didn't try to be unforgettable. You were just real. You didn't manipulate attachment. You didn't play games. You didn't create artificial scarcity. You were available, consistent, and sincere. In a culture that often confuses chaos with chemistry, that sincerity stands out. Someone is staying because you made loyalty feel like peace, not the absence of problems, but the presence of trust. Not the lack of conflict, but the assurance of repair. Not perfection, but effort. That peace is addictive in the healthiest way. Once someone feels it, they don't want to go back to survival mode connections. They stay because with you, loyalty doesn't cost them their identity. It enhances it. You didn't demand they prioritize you above everything else. You asked to be prioritized alongside what matters to them. That difference made loyalty feel balanced instead of draining. It allowed love to integrate into life, not compete with it. You also knew that loyalty includes accountability. You didn't excuse harmful behavior in the name of love. You addressed issues directly, with care but with clarity. That integrity made the bond trustworthy. They know that staying with you doesn't mean tolerating dysfunction. It means working toward health. That's why leaving isn't tempting. Not because it's impossible, but because it's unnecessary. Someone is staying because you showed them that loyalty can evolve. That it can deepen over time instead of hardening into resentment. That it can adapt to life's changes without losing its core. That flexibility made the connection sustainable, not fragile. You didn't just redefine loyalty for them. You may have healed a part of them that thought loyalty always hurt. You gave them a new reference point. A new standard. And once someone has that, they measure everything else against it. They stay because with you, loyalty feels like being chosen every day, quietly, consistently, without fear. And whether or not you hear it often, whether or not it's spoken out loud, that choice matters. It reflects the way you show up. The way you listen. The way you care. The way you allow love to be both deep and kind. Someone is staying because you redefined what loyalty feels like. And in doing so, you didn't just keep them, you gave them a reason to want to stay. Someone is staying because you redefined what loyalty feels like, not as a promise made once, but as a choice renewed quietly, day after day. You showed them that loyalty can feel like safety instead of sacrifice, like peace instead of pressure, like freedom instead of fear. With you, staying doesn't mean losing themselves. It means becoming more of who they are. And that is why they remain. Not because they are bound to you, but because with you, loyalty finally feels like home.